My name is Mary, and I'm about to tell you something I haven't told anyone else yet, and maybe you won't even believe me, but I need to say it out loud just once so it doesn't eat me alive from the inside. It all started on a Saturday night when I was making dinner for my wife's entire family. I'm talking a full table, her parents, her siblings, even the uncle nobody really talks to, and I wanted it to be perfect. I had spent the whole day in the kitchen chopping, seasoning, roasting, setting the table, pouring wine, folding napkins. Everything was going fine until I went into the garage to grab a few extra chairs, and that's where everything started to go wrong. I stepped and turned on the flashlight on my phone, and instantly something felt off, like the air was thicker, like the silence wasn't normal, like the kind of silence that watches you instead of ignoring you. And there it was, this big wooden box in the back corner, chained up with a rusty old lock. I swear to you, I had never seen it before, and I've lived in this house for 5 years. I froze. Something deep inside me told me to turn around and pretend I didn't see it, but I didn't. I walked closer, reached down, and just touched the edge of the chain, and that was enough. Later that night, something strange happened during dessert. My wife looked at me in this way she never had before and whispered something that made the hairs on my neck stand up. She said, "You opened the box, didn't you?" I didn't know what to say. I mean, technically, no, I hadn't. Not yet, at least. I asked her what was inside, but she didn't answer. She just said, "If you opened it, maybe it's already too late." Now I know you're thinking, "Mary, what the hell are you talking about?" But trust me, if you were there, if you saw what I saw, you'd be sitting in your bed clutching your phone right now, just like you were. So before I tell you what happened next, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, because what's coming is going to twist your brain. And if you've ever opened something you weren't supposed to, tell me in the comments right now, because I need to know I'm not the only one who went too far. Now let me tell you how it all started. That Saturday had every reason to go right. The sun was out, I was feeling proud, the food smelled amazing, and for once I felt like everything in my life was actually okay. My wife Lucia had been so happy lately. She wanted to bring the whole family together, and I thought, why not? Let's show them we're solid, that we're doing well, that I'm good for her. Because to be honest, some of them had doubts, especially her mother, who never really smiled at me, the kind of woman who compliments you, but her eyes say something else. Anyway, the house looked great. The table was already set with real plates, not those cheap plastic ones, and I was already picturing everyone clapping when they tasted my garlic roast chicken. That's how confident I was. I was slicing the last few pieces of bread when Lucia walked into the kitchen real quiet and asked me, "Babe, can you go get the folding chairs in the garage?" I didn't think twice, of course. I said sure, even though that garage is usually a disaster zone. We throw everything in their boxes, tools, decorations, things we don't even remember owning, and honestly, she usually avoids going in there herself. But that day she asked me, and I just went. What I didn't know is that it wasn't just about the chairs, it was about what was waiting right next to them. When I opened the door, the smell hit me first like damp cardboard and metal, and something else I couldn't place. I turned on the light, and the flicker alone gave me chills. I walked in, and my eyes scanned the mess. There they were, 3 black folding chairs stacked against the far wall, but something behind them was poking out, a piece of old wood covered by a dirty gray sheet. It felt out of place, not just because it was hidden, but because the moment I saw it, I forgot about everything else. I reached down just to move the sheet, and that's when I saw the chains, thick, rusty, heavy, and locked around a wooden box about the size of a small suitcase, the kind of thing that's not meant to be open, the kind of thing that tells you with its silence that it holds something you shouldn't see. I stepped back, heart pounding, and told myself, no, just grab the chairs and get out of here. But you know how curiosity works. It grows, it whispers, it crawls into your head and sits there. I didn't touch the box, not that time. I just grabbed the chairs and left. But even while people were arriving and hugging and laughing, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And the weird part was, every time I looked at Lucia, she looked back at me like she knew something, like she was waiting for something, like she was hoping I didn't notice what she tried to hide. Dinner was already halfway through the main course when I felt like I was floating around the table. People were laughing, clinking glasses, talking over each other, but all I could think about was that box in the garage. I tried to push it out of my mind, I really did, but every time I looked at Lucia, something in her eyes kept pulling me back. Her smile was too perfect, too rehearsed, like someone pretending not to panic, and the more I noticed, the more I saw little things. Her dad watching me too closely, her brother whispering something, and then going quiet when I walked by. It wasn't just the box, it was like the entire room had started to shift around it, and I was the only one who didn't know the script. I couldn't take it anymore. I leaned toward Lucia and said quietly, "Hey, that box in the garage, have you seen it before?" She froze like I'd slapped her, but she recovered quick, smiled wider, and said, "What box?" I said, "The wooden one behind the chairs with the chains and the lock," and her eyes flicked to her mother, who had been listening the entire time, and without turning her head, the woman said, "You saw the box?" Her voice was calm, but there was something behind it, something cold. I said, "Yeah, is it yours?" And Lucia put her hand on mine and whispered, "Don't open it, please. Whatever you do, don't open it." And that's when her mom leaned forward just slightly and said, "If you open it, maybe it's already too late." I didn't even know how to respond. My brain was racing. I said, I didn't open it. I just saw it, but no one was listening anymore. They had gone back to eating, talking, pretending like nothing happened, and I felt like I was the only one awake in a room full of actors playing parts in a play I didn't understand. After dessert, I waited until everyone was distracted, and I slipped away back into the garage. This time, I brought a wrench. I knelt in front of the box and stared at it for a long time, trying to decide if I was crazy or just curious, and honestly, at that point I didn't care anymore. I smashed the lock. The metal broke easy, like it wanted to give in, like it wanted to be opened. And when I pulled off the chains and lifted the lid, I stopped breathing. Inside were photos, lots of them, old, slightly yellowing with time photos of Lucia, but not the Lucia I knew. In these, she looked younger, her hair longer, and she was with a man and two little kids, smiling, hugging, like a perfect family, but I had never seen them before. On the back of one photo was written in faded ink, "Family, Carvalho 2009, and my heart dropped because I had no idea who that was. Then I found the folder underneath. It was thick and full of newspaper clippings, most of them with the same headline: "Family disappears without a trace, mother found alone with no memory, police suspect trauma." Or worse, every article had her picture, the same face I saw every morning and every night in bed with me. I sat there staring at it all, like my brain was refusing to believe what my eyes were reading. Lucia had a whole life before me, a husband, two children, and they were gone, and she never told me anything, not a word, not even a hint. And now I was holding the proof in my hands, proof that maybe the woman I loved had been hiding not just her past, but something much darker. I stood there in the garage for what felt like hours, just staring at the photos and the headlines, like if I looked long enough something would make sense. But it didn't. Nothing made sense because none of it was part of the life I knew with Lucia. She never mentioned a man, never said anything about having kids, and those dates, they were from years before we met, long enough that it could have been buried, forgotten, hidden. And now I had this box full of ghosts sitting right in front of me. I stuffed everything back inside, closed the lid, and went back to the dinner party like nothing happened. But inside, I was shaking. I watched Lucia from across the room, laughing with her cousins, pouring wine, like her whole world hadn't just shattered in my hands. And I started to wonder, had I missed signs? Had there been clues over the years that I ignored? I thought back to the nights she'd wake up crying, saying she had dreams she couldn't explain, memories that didn't feel like hers. I used to hold her, tell her it was nothing, just stress. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it was all there right in front of me, and I chose not to see it. Later that night, after everyone left, I waited until we were alone in bed, and I turned to her and said I opened the box. I know I wasn't supposed to, but I did. She didn't answer right away, just stared at the ceiling like she was trying to decide which version of the truth to give me. Finally, she said I was married before his name was Daniel. We had two kids, Lucas and Beatrice. We lived in another state, small town, quiet life. It was good until one day I woke up and they were gone. No note, no noise, no signs of struggle, just gone, like they were erased. And when I tried to tell the police, they didn't believe me. They thought I did something to them and that I made up the memory loss. They said I was unstable. I spent a year in a hospital trying to remember, and when I couldn't, I decided to start over. New name, new place, new life. And that's when I met you. I asked her, why didn't you tell me? Why keep all of this from me? She looked at me and said, because I was afraid that if I remembered they'd come back, and if they didn't, then maybe it meant I really did something terrible. I didn't know what to say. I just held her while she cried, and I believed her, or at least I wanted to believe her. But things didn't get better after that, they got worse. I started noticing little things around the house, doors unlocked that I knew I had locked, lights on in rooms we hadn't used, drawers open. In the middle of the night one morning, I found a crayon drawing on the fridge, two stick figures, a man, a woman, and two kids holding hands. I showed Lucia and she went pale, said she didn't do it, but I hadn't done it either. Neither of us even had crayons in the house. Not until that day I went back to the garage to see the box again, and that's when I noticed something else. On the inside of the lid was scratched a phrase so faint I almost missed it. It said, "Remember, or they'll make you forget." I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I started keeping the folder from the box under my bed, rereading the articles, looking for clues, anything that would make this nightmare make sense. And every time I tried to talk to Lucia about it, she'd get nervous, distracted, like something in her brain was pulling her away from the conversation. I started wondering if the box wasn't just a memory of the past. Maybe it was the only thing keeping the truth alive. Maybe someone or something wanted us to forget what really happened, and by opening it I had restarted something that was supposed to stay buried. One night I came home from work and found Lucia sitting on the couch, just staring at the front door. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she saw a boy standing across the street watching the house. I looked, but there was no one there. She said he looked familiar, but she couldn't explain why. And the next morning I found another drawing on the kitchen table, this time of a house with a window and someone Watching from outside, and in the corner written in shaky handwriting was the word remember. I took the drawings to a friend who works in psychology, and she told me something that chilled me to the bone. She said memory isn't always lost, it's sometimes taken or locked away, and when people try to access those parts they get resistance, like headaches, sleepwalking, paranoia. And then I realized Lucia had been showing all of those signs, and so had I. The night I knew something had really changed was the night I caught myself standing in the garage with no memory of how I got there. It was 2 a.m, the lights were off, my hands were shaking, and the box was open in front of me. I wasn't dreaming, I wasn't drunk, I was fully awake, and I had no idea how long I'd been there. Lucia found me barefoot staring into the box. She pulled me back into the house, and held me, and said, "It's happening too. You too, isn't it?" And that's when I broke down. I asked her what the hell was going on, and she finally told me the part she had never told anyone, not even her parents. She said the night her family disappeared, she woke up in the kitchen sitting on the floor with blood on her hands and the front door wide open. The police couldn't find a single trace of the kids, no prints, no footprints, no broken glass, nothing. Her husband's phone was found in the backyard with one word typed into the notes app. Remember, she said for years after that she had dreams of the kids calling her from behind walls, of hearing them cry in places they weren't supposed to be, and of a man in black standing at the edge of her bed. She said her brain refused to let her remember what happened that night, but her body never forgot the cold, the terror, the guilt. And when she moved here with me, the dreams stopped until the box came back. I asked her, "What do you mean came back?" She said the box wasn't from this house. It showed up one morning after we had already moved in. No delivery, no note, just there in the garage, like it had followed her, like it wanted her to open it. And remember, she said her parents begged her not to open it again, that they had seen what it did to her, that it fed on memory, and that every time someone got too close to the truth, it took a piece of them. That's why they kept it locked, chained, buried in the back. And when I broke that lock, I didn't just open a box, I opened something that was never meant to be touched. I didn't want to believe her, but things kept getting worse. I started forgetting small things, my keys, my wallet, my login passwords. Then it got bigger. I forgot my boss's name. I forgot where I parked the car. One night I looked in the mirror, and for a second I didn't recognize my own face. I called my mom to ask her about something, and she told me I already had called her that morning. I didn't remember that call at all. And then the worst thing happened. I looked at a photo on our bedroom wall, a picture of me and Lucia on vacation in Rio, and I swear I had never seen that beach. I couldn't remember taking that photo. I couldn't even remember being there. And that's when I knew it was real, that it wasn't just trauma or stress or paranoia. Something was stealing my memories and leaving me hollow. I started writing everything down, every detail of every day. I kept a notebook with me at all times. I would read it back to myself every night like homework, just to keep track of who I was and what I knew. Lucia did the same. We both lived like that for weeks, afraid to sleep, afraid to be alone, afraid of what would disappear next. And then one morning a letter came, no stamp, no return address, just our names on the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a photo of her old family, Daniel, Lucas, and Beatriz, and scrawled across it in red marker were the words, "You're next." I ran outside, hoping to see who left it, and standing across the street was a boy about 8, maybe 9, watching our house, not blinking, not moving, just staring. And I swear to you, he looked exactly like the boy from the old family photo. I turned around for 1 second, and when I looked back, he was gone. After the boy disappeared, I went back inside and found Lucia staring at the photo from the envelope. She kept touching it like she was trying to feel if it was real, and then she whispered, "I think they're here." I asked who, and she said them, Daniel, the kids, they're back, or something that looks like them, and they want me to remember. I told her we needed to get rid of the box, burn it, throw it into the ocean, anything to stop this from spreading. She agreed. We packed it in a duffel bag and drove hours out of town to a quarry in the middle of nowhere, and we threw it into the water together. It sank fast, and for a moment it felt like maybe it was over. We drove home in silence, holding hands like we were trying to anchor ourselves back to something real. But when we got home, the lights in the garage were on, and when we opened the door, the box was back, sitting in the exact same spot, same lock, same chain, like it had never moved. Lucia screamed, and I fell to my knees, because at that point I knew we weren't dealing with something human or logical. We were in something older, something darker, something that fed on time and memory and fear. We stopped sleeping together. We took shifts. One would watch while the other rested, but the dreams still came. I kept seeing flashes of a little girl crying behind a wall of mirrors, her voice muffled, her eyes always begging, and then a man tall with no face, just a mouthful of teeth, whispering over and over, "Remember, remember, remember." I started hearing knocks at the door at 3 a.m., always 3 soft knocks, but when I looked outside, no one was there, and the drawings kept coming more and more every day. One of me in the garage, one of Lucia crying blood, one of a family portrait with a red X through the father's face. I went to the police, but they thought I was hallucinating. They checked the security cams from our neighborhood and said no one was ever outside our house, but I saw him. The boy was there every night, always watching, always silent. Then one night I Couldn't find my notebook, the one I wrote everything, and I tore the house apart looking for it. And when I finally found it, all the pages were blank, not torn, not erased, just gone, like the ink itself had disappeared. I held it and cried because it meant I was losing pieces of myself, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I tried to talk to my mom again, but she didn't answer. And when I finally reached her, she told me she had never heard of anyone named Mary and hung up. I called my job and they told me no one by my name worked there anymore. I went to the mirror and stared at my own eyes, trying to remember my birthday, my hometown, anything. And it was like there was static in my brain. Lucia found me like that, sitting on the floor, staring at the wall. And she said, "Mary, I'm scared. I don't think I'm real anymore. I don't think we were supposed to be here together. I think we're just filling a space they left behind." I asked her, "Who are they?" And she looked at me and said, "I don't know, but I think they remember everything and they don't want us to leave." She took my hand and told me we had to stop fighting it, stop resisting, that maybe forgetting was better than knowing. And in that moment, something inside me broke, because a part of me agreed. I was so tired, so scared of remembering. I just wanted peace. But the box wouldn't let us go. That night I dreamed of the man again, only this time he was inside our house, standing over our bed. And when I woke up, there was dirt on the floor, like someone had walked through the house with muddy boots, and next to the bed was another photo, this time of me and Lucia sitting on the couch. But we were both asleep in the picture, and I realized someone had taken it while we slept. Someone had been in the house. It's hard to say when exactly it happened, but one day I woke up and didn't recognize my own handwriting. I looked at a note I had left myself the night before, and I couldn't understand the words, like they were written by someone else, like they weren't meant for me anymore. Lucia was quieter by then. Her eyes had that empty, faraway look, like someone watching a movie of their own life, unable to interact, unable to change anything. We didn't speak much, not because we were angry, but because we didn't know what to say. We forgot how to have normal conversations, how to talk about anything that wasn't the box or the boy or the drawings. I found another one taped to the bathroom mirror, two stick figures, one small, one tall, holding hands next to a house burning in the background, and under it a single word: restart. I started to wonder if this had happened before, if Lucia had gone through this cycle with someone else before me, if I was just the next person chosen to fill the gap and keep the pattern going. I searched every folder, every photo, every inch of the house for proof, and one night I found something behind the drywall in the closet, a crack just big enough to slip my fingers into and pull away the wood. Behind it was a box smaller than the one in the garage, but newer, wrapped in red velvet and tied with black thread, and written on the top in shaky letters was my name. I didn't want to open it, but of course I did. Inside was a photo of me alone, standing in the kitchen, wearing clothes I didn't own and looking older than I remembered being. It was dated 3 years into the future, and on the back was a note that said, "This isn't the first time you've remembered, but it might be the last." I sat on the floor holding that photo like it was the only real thing left, and I realized then this wasn't a story about what happened to Lucia or her family, or even to me. It was a loop, a trap, a design meant to reset over and over, erasing memories, building new ones, letting people believe they were starting fresh, when in fact they were just stepping into someone else's script. I still write things down every day, even now as I speak. I don't know how long this version of me will last, but I needed to tell someone. I needed this story to exist somewhere outside of me, in case I forget, in case it happens again. And you watching this right now, maybe you're part of it too. Maybe this video is your first clue. And if that's true, you need to remember this: the boy always comes first, then the dreams, then the box, and after that, well, you'll see. I'm Mary, and thank you for listening to my story. It's not over, not really, and that's why I need you to do something before you go. Click like and subscribe to this channel, because there are more stories like this waiting for you, and every time you do, help me keep this story alive and maybe protect someone else from what happened to me. And if you think you've ever found something you weren't supposed to, or opened a door that should have stayed closed, write it down in the comments. I want to hear your story too. And before you leave, look at the screen now. There's a video appearing. It's the next chapter of this mystery, the next piece of the puzzle. Click on it and watch, but be careful, because sometimes the past doesn't want to stay buried, and sometimes the truth is the last thing you want to remember. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.